Good afternoon and welcome to Forward Thinking, an examination of contemporary American foreign policy issues featuring some of the brightest up-and-coming young minds in the public policy arena today. Our guest this afternoon is Colleen Crawford, a rising senior and honors student at the University of Texas, who is here today to discuss with us her honors thesis in International Relations and Global Studies. Colleen, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in public policy.
Well, let's see. I was born in Austin, Texas. Moved to a little town called Lufkin, Texas when I was 13 years old. When I was 13, my mother accepted a position at the American Embassy in Cairo, which took me and my sister to the Middle East for 5 years, which kind of whetted my appetite in international relations in general. And when I came back to the United States for university, I didn't want to lose the interest. I didn't want to lose touch with what was going on not only in the Middle East, but kind of worldwide. And so I declared international relations as my major.
And I understand that you have written a thesis this spring on an international relations topic having to do with the Chinese naval forces and their buildup.
Yes.
What was it that got you interested in that topic specifically?
Well, I was taking a class with Professor Dr. Hans Mark, and he is the former Secretary of the Air Force and national security expert. And he was very much involved in the Cold War and knows a lot about national security issues. And he was discussing in class the future of the U.S. and China, and was very concerned with it and said that that would probably be the new frontier. He kind of mentioned their Navy as being as rising and not having a lot of implications. So I kind of took that tip and looked into it more myself and realized that this is a whole frontier that is about to be unveiled in the future, and I think that it's the most important.
Now, most of our audience is already familiar with Dr. Mark and his work. Did you have an opportunity to have one-on-one time with him during your course of studies?
Yes, actually, when I was taking his class, we often met during office hours for discussion and feedback sort of situations, but even after the class was finished, him and I have been keeping in touch about my future and different career options to explore as the years go on.
And have you had any other influences that have been strong in leading you or guiding you in the direction that you're taking in the foreign policy arena, Colleen?
Yeah, the most important job I've had so far in determining my future career was when I was interning at the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. And I was involved in a couple of different offices at that time, human resources, economics, and community liaison office, and it kind of gave me a really broad taste of what kind of international affairs are in at least Eastern Europe. And that job introduced me to how the U.S. gets involved with other countries and like the extent to which they collaborate and help and also advance their own interests. And some influences there were my fellow interns, including Emily Linehan, Megan Monfort, and some other really great people, as well as a lot of personal bosses of mine, such as Naomi Campbell and some others. Campbell is not the name.
Now, we're at the Student Activities Center for the University of Texas this afternoon, and we're about to go upstairs and take a look at the display that you've created for the Honors Day ceremony here in the College of Liberal Arts. But to give our viewers a little bit of a preview of it, could you talk just for a couple of minutes about your thesis and how the idea came to you for your thesis and what you see the core idea of it as being?
Yeah, of course. The thesis is about China's naval rise and its future implications on U.S.-China relations. Now, I came to this idea because of what Dr. Mark said, and after I looked into it a little bit more, I realized that this is a very hot topic. Kind of what I concluded after a lot of extensive research into different possibilities of scenarios is that the nature of China's strategy and the nature of the U.S.'s strategy to maintain their global power status in Asia-Pacific will put them in conflict with one another in the 21st century. But because of the economic integration between the two countries and the implications of that has on the global economy overall, they will not be able to act hostilely towards each other in a hot war, but this will be a souring of diplomatic ties and kind of icy relations in the future.
What's a fascinating idea, Colleen, and I know our viewers will look forward to hearing about it in more detail.
Hmm.
Let's go upstairs and take a look at your exhibit and ask you some more questions about it at this point.
I would love that, yeah.
And normally our viewers would not think of China as a world or global naval power. Did you come to a different conclusion based on your study, Colleen?
Absolutely. It's a bit of a gray zone when classifying anything as a naval power as such, but what's important to look out here is their growth rates, and their economy is the fastest growing economy in the world, and what they've done is match that with a very high growth rate militarily, and specifically in the military they're focusing on their Navy. What do we learn about this from their Navy? Well, the Navy is Alfred T. Mahan and many believe that whoever controls the seas controls the world. The sea lanes are very important, and so China's amped up a lot of their naval technologies, naval weapons, ships, submarines, etc., and they are trying to become a naval power, yeah.
Though it would seem that China has the best of both worlds already, in the sense that they have a strong merchant marine presence without having to spend the capital and invest the government resources in building up their Navy. Do you really think that they need a powerful Navy in today's world?
Oh, absolutely. You know, with trade as important as it is, and the shipping lanes, and Asia and the U.S.'s economic relationship is completely dependent upon trade, control of the seas controls the trade. So in order for them to perturb the global power balance, which is what I believe they want to do, they're going to have to at least assert themselves in their own oceanic sphere of influence before trying to kind of grow more outwardly. First step is the South China Sea.
Well, Colleen, let's go ahead and cut to the chase right here. Why don't you talk to our viewers a little bit about the central idea of your thesis and how you got there?
Sure. The central idea of my thesis is that while conflict with China is likely, it will be limited. Now, the reason that conflict is likely is because of a couple of reasons. First of all, China and the U.S. are both very stubborn in their positions with power. So, for example, the U.S. is a naval power, and the U.S. has a very proud maritime tradition. And so what this means is they're going to try to keep that up. And the Navy is responsible for our stakes in the oil field in the Middle East and with this trade. They're going to want to keep this, and they've made blunt and explicit statements that they intend to. And China, on the other hand, has gone from being very, very, superior in the Middle Kingdom dynasty to having absolutely nothing during Mao and, all the crappy dynasties before that. And then now with their economic strength, they're tasting superiority again. And what they want to do is regain their status from before. And so neither of them want to be second, and I think that their innate need to be first. American exceptionalism and Chinese Middle Kingdom legacy will put them in direct conflict. But this conflict, again, will be limited because of the extreme economic ties between the two countries. The global economy cannot survive if China and the U.S. go to war. Just cannot. So they both know this, and they both know that they are very important powers in this sense, and both of their countries would be devastated if they were to engage in a hot conflict. So I believe that their conflict will be limited to intensified diplomatic relations, intensity, icy kind of future, and this could mean a lot because if the world's two greatest economic powers aren't cooperating, there could be a number of spin-off conflicts as a result of this.
And Colleen, what has been the United States government's response to the buildup of Chinese naval power?
Well, the public rhetoric is purely cooperative. They are acknowledging China's rise. They're very supportive of it. This is a mutual, we can be partners, all these very liberalistic vocabulary terms. Equally, on the Chinese side, they are claiming that their Navy is a purely defensive force. Only happening because of their growth in economic strength. So outwardly, they're okay with it. Outwardly, they're supportive. We can do this together. We need to. We have to. And there was even talk about a G2 kind of situation. But I think behind all the rhetoric, the reality is that each are doing their best to remain at the top or become the top.
So are we at the precipice now for a new age of naval buildup by both of the world superpowers, where we'll see escalating naval buildups by both countries over the next 10, 20 years?
It's an excellent question. So the U.S. has actually had historical lows in their naval budget, and the military has gotten a lot of budget cuts. On the contrary, China is building theirs up greatly, and you can see in these graphs the convergence of power. And in response to China's naval buildup, the U.S. has authorized a increase in naval spending 25%. So this is huge implications, and I think it says a lot to what they perceive as a threat. They were caught very off guard with China's naval rise. There's a lot of weapons that they have that we don't even have defenses against, much less have ourselves, such as the DF-21 missile, carrier killer, coin does. And so I think that the U.S. will build up, re-emphasize their naval aspect of the military, but and China will continue to as well. In terms of if it's going to be like an arms race, Cold War, I think that's a little far, but I definitely think that we're going to see a rise.
And maybe just to sum up for our viewers this afternoon, Colleen, could you tell us a little bit about where you think all of this is going to lead us in the next 10 to 20, maybe 25 years, the next quarter century?
Yeah. I firmly believe that in the 21st century, our security challenges will be between the U.S. and China. The Middle East is a huge frontier, but I believe it's dying out with our withdrawal in Afghanistan and Iraq. The new frontier is Asia, specifically China. And I think that what we'll see in the next 20 to 25 years is increased attempts to pacify each other and keep each other in the loop, a lot of treaties and agreements, but also just a lot of behind-the-scenes buildup and preparation for the worst case scenario, which would be a hot war. But again, I don't think that's likely.
Well, Colleen, that was a very interesting display, and we really appreciate you sharing your ideas and your perspective with our viewers. I think we all feel much enlightened by your observations and by the work that you've done. I understand you're a rising senior and will be graduating from the University of Texas this spring. Is that right?
Yes.
And what plans, if any, have you for after graduation?
Well, the immediate plan is to go to Singapore, where I will be working at the American Embassy there in the Economic and Political Affairs section, which I'm very looking forward to. Grad school in the area of public affairs, public policy is where I'm orienting myself currently. Kind of nothing's off the table, but that's where my interests are driving me. And so I hope to work for a year, maybe 2 years, in some different facets of international relations, multinational NGOs, government organizations, private think tanks, kind of anything that'll give me a broad introduction into what a future in public affairs would be like.
Well, it sounds like you're aiming toward a career in the public sector then.
Possibly. There are some private sector opportunities for this type of work. They're growing, but they're still few. Public sector is the natural choice for this kind of major.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Colleen, I want to thank you again for taking the time from your busy afternoon to sit with us and talk a little bit about your ideas. It's a fascinating thesis, and you've done an excellent piece of work.
Thank you.
So with that, then, we'll close out this session of Forward Thinking. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon for Forward Thinking. Look for us next week, same time, same channel.